So, it continues. Hello there, welcome back to Max's Writing Advice Q&A. In tonight's episode, I have a selection of questions sent by viewers just like you. Every week, I take your questions from the comments, toss them in a random number generator, and answer 3 of them. A writing advice lottery, if you may. If you have a question you would like me to answer in a future video, leave it in the comments down below. I will give you a quick reply. It's kind of one of the new rules that I have set upon myself on this channel. I will answer your questions in a bit of a brief way. But if you do get to win the writing advice lottery, I will answer it live on the show. Live for me, not live for you. Hello there, people from the future. Mark that off your bingo table. But yeah, anyhow, you know the deal. Or if you don't, well, now you do. Let's take it from the top. Before I go on anywhere, allow me to remind you, as always, that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who's been drinking coffee all day today. So much energy. So I was about to make that whole spiel, that joke that I do every time, where I'm like, hey, do you know what I put in my coffee? Nothing, because I take my coffee black, like my soul. I've done that bit like 100 times. But I was wondering, I'm like, how do souls even have color? If it can't be seen, how can it, project photons differently? I'm such a terrible person. Souls have no colors, you guys. If it's invisible, it cannot actually project or reflect light. Anyhow, let's take it from the top. The first question of the day goes a little bit like this. How do I do the whole epistolary novel thing? My face is falling off in confusion. 3 minutes on the clock. Let's go. I remember this question. I answered it on Twitter. In case you don't know, an epistolary novel is a story that is told through a series of documents. Generally, traditionally speaking, it would be like a story told between letters. The general idea is that these independent documents like letters are intertwined through a continuous narrative, generally in chronological fashion. If you are more of a gamer, or you play video games, and you're looking for a much more modern approach to the style of storytelling, think of audio logs from a game like BioShock, or basically any game after BioShock that tries to do a story in the middle of gameplay. Okay, so you already know what an epistolary novel is. It's a story, a narrative told through a series of documents. Now, how would you go about doing a story like this? Honestly, and I'm not saying this in a like mean way, but I feel that a story like this is what's the word I'm looking for? It's a different type of storytelling altogether. It feels as though telling the story without telling you the story. Because I think about this and I'm like, what would I do? I feel like I would do it just through legal documents. Like the first chapter would be like a report on like a character's birth, and then you follow only through like school reports and like little things like these. Because I feel that like instead of just doing like the letter thing of like going back and forth, which is, I don't want to say easiest because you still have to do the work, but it's a really straightforward way of doing so, I would have fun with the format. It's actually getting a little hot over here in California, so don't mind me breaking out the sassy fan of Mount Fuji. But anyhow, I feel that I would actually just play with format. I think that a story like this that is like so outside of the usual way stories are told gives you so much room to just play around. Honestly, I would just have fun with it. Just strike ridiculous, crazy things. Just like do something outrageous and ridiculous. Think outside the box, if you may. But I guess if I had to say that, I would just, if I had to summarize, I would say think outside the box, have fun with it, do crazy things. And now for the second question of the day, it goes a little bit like this. Hi Max, you have got a similar question to this before, but now it's about fanfiction, or rather a story that is being posted chapter by chapter and can't really wait until it's completed to get a revision. When I read my previous chapters, I always think of something I could have added or written differently. But should I change it, even if I have already posted them like this? I've already edited and rewritten this story like 3 times, and I'm afraid my readers will get mad or bored with me. What should I do? Sorry if it's confusing. This is not a confusing question at all. If you haven't already, go back to my video. It's recent, it's literally like 2 weeks ago, I think. Tips for writing serialized stories. You don't have to revise the whole thing. You can write them, the chapters in packages of like 3 or 4, like 2-3 weeks of chapters in advance, and revise them so that at least these chapters have their own coherent narrative, and you can work a little bit ahead like that. Now. I feel like this question deals, because that video will answer all of your questions of like, okay, I'm doing a serialized story on a chapter by chapter basis. If it's fan fiction or not, it doesn't matter. You're releasing a story on a chapter by chapter basis. That video will help you. I want to talk about the passing of time. Every day you write, every time you finish a story, every step you take forward, you are moving away, you could say, from the version of yourself that wrote that original story. What I'm saying here is that you can't keep coming back to the same story that you wrote, fixing it and revising it and revising it. I mean, you can do anything you want, I can't stop you, you're an adult of your own making. I would like to urge you to, instead of doing that, to make newer stories, make a new story and keep moving forward. The reality is this, and this is even more real for, like, I guess, traditional authors, I guess, where you make a book and the book is there and you can't change it. The stories that you're gonna write a year from now are gonna be way better than whatever you have out right now, and that is just the reality of the beast, and you can't change it. And I know that it sucks, because most people go back to your first books and you're like, this book is not good. But that's just the way things are. You can't really change that. The only thing you can do is keep moving forward. I know that it's like, especially now in the digital era, where you can just go back and edit, chapter 1 on your Wattpad. It may seem really alluring to do that, but I don't think it's worth the trouble. I don't think it's worth utilizing the time that you have right now to tell more stories, to keep coming back to the old ones. One really good example of this that I particularly enjoy, and will take us into the next question because I really want to talk about this, J.K. Rowling and the first Harry Potter books. The first 4 Harry Potter books are not very good. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be rude. The first Harry Potter books, I read them in my adulthood, because I didn't read them when I was young, because I lived in a different country. I read all of those books recently, like last year, and the first 4 books are not very good. They have, I don't want to say mistakes, because that's just a complete judgment call, but they have a particular really, really ineffective use of language called adverbs, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But even J.K. Rowling, like to the extent where even J.K. Rowling herself has gone on record to say that, like, she wishes she could just go back and take all of the adverbs off of the first 4 books, because they're plagued with adverbs. But then you come upon the problem of, like, people have already, like, read these books when they were children, they kind of like them. It would feel almost like, are you just gonna go back and just change the language, or are you also gonna change story elements? And it feels like messing up with a lot of things, and honestly, like, it's too much trouble. That's why I would like to inspire you to just write new stuff or keep moving forward. Those chapters are gonna be there, and really the time that you're spending, like, fixing them, especially, you're saying that you've already rewritten them like 3 times, it's time that you're not spending writing new content. Now. Generally, I would do a third question, but I want to talk about a subject that I haven't talked about in like a year or so. And it's time for us to talk about adverbs. I will start the question in a moment, but let me tell you a little bit of a personal moment. Let's slow down. I'm gonna go on like a little mini spiel for a moment, because I want to talk about this, and I'm prefacing the following question. I remember the exact moment when I could have just dropped the Harry Potter books, and it was in book 3. The Prisoner of Azkaban, and I have issues with that book. That book is like, it's the definition of a mixed bag for me, because I like it, but I also despise the terrible use of time travel in it. It's literally like, it's bad. It's literally a plot device, and it's like the most careless use of time travel ever. And I love time travel. My life is all about time travel. My favorite movie is Back to the Future. My favorite video game is Chrono Trigger. I love time travel, so when it's done just for the plot, for the sake of solving a plot problem, I despise it. And also the writing in Prisoner of Azkaban is not very effective. The very moment when I thought of dropping the book is when there were 2 lines back to back of dialogue, and Ron says something, and the dialogue tag for it is, Ron said gingerly. And the following line is Sirius Black saying something, and Sirius Black said, seriously. There comes a point when adverbs become so obvious and so ineffective that they just completely take you out of it. And I remember reading those 2 lines back to back and like leaning back on my chair and going, this is not even funny. This is not even funny, J.K. Rowling. No. Now, Now, that's mostly for humor, but now let's actually move on to the third question of the day. I'm rambled on too long, so let's actually talk about adverbs. So let me just imagine a theoretical question that goes a little bit like this. Hey Max, why are adverbs bad? Or not good? Or not very efficient when it comes to writing fiction? Now let's actually take it from the top. What is an adverb? Because I haven't actually told you. An adverb or adverbial phrase is a word that ends in ly. Words like sweetly, kindly, romantically. These are usually used as descriptors, but they are a problem in fiction because of various reasons that I'm about to explain to you, and as well as ways to not use them in writing and to make your writing more effective, because it would be a little silly if I just talked about things that are bad and didn't offer at least a solution. But let's take it from the top. What is the worst adverb? The worst adverb in the history of the world, the one that I hate the most personally, romantically. The issue with adverbs is that they're usually used to describe something, but they don't actually tell the reader anything. Saying that, for instance, imagine a female character, and she goes, "I love you with all of my heart," comma, she said romantically. What does that mean? What does romantically mean? Romantically may mean one thing to another person and may mean another thing to another. The whole thing with writing is that when you describe something, you want the reader to imagine it in their minds. And the issue with adverbs is that you kind of just throw your shoulders up and go, well, I want you to know that they're doing it in a way, but I can't be bothered to write it, so just romantically. And it doesn't really say anything. It doesn't really tell the reader anything. They don't picture it in their mind in a particularly effective way. That's why, in my personal opinion, when it comes to adverbs that are used like this, adverbs that are used just as packages or substitutes, shortcuts, shorthand for description, I say either A, rephrase them, please. Because if it matters enough that the reader needs to know, then tell them, what is she doing? Is she, speaking lowly? Is she, leaning closer? Is she cupping the chin of whoever she's talking to? What is she doing? And if it's important, describe it to me so that I can imagine it just the way that you are. Because after all, aren't you trying to show me your story? And the alternative, that it doesn't actually matter what she's doing or how she's saying it, then just cut that adverb out. It makes your story flow a lot better. Because you don't want to end up in a situation where you have Ron said gingerly, followed by Sirius Black said seriously. That's not even funny. Now, I know that I generally don't do videos where I'm like, don't do this! But I want to talk about adverbs because it's kind of really related to the subject of J.K. Rowling and the earlier books. And if you would like to learn more about adverbs and what makes them not very effective, or somebody else's points of view, I recommend Stephen King on his memoir on writing. He talks about them. He was a very inspiring point because I never liked adverbs and I couldn't really phrase it until he phrased it himself much more eloquently than I can. I recommend you go check out his memoir, link in the description down below. I love that memoir, and he talks about this in a better way than I ever possibly could. But there's something I want to talk about. Not all adverbs are bad. I don't want you to go through your entire manuscript searching for words that end in ly, or descriptive terms or phrases that end in ly, and just cut them out, because that's not really the point here. The point is that adverbs that are used as a substitute, shortcut, shorthand for description are not effective, because you're not describing the reader anything. You're just telling them to, hey, you imagine it. Did you imagine her being romantic-like? That being said, not all adverbs are bad. I think if there's one adverb that can absolutely still survive, if there's one adverb that gets to survive the revision apocalypse, it is quickly. Quickly is completely okay because there's no other way of phrasing this without just being worthy or lengthy. Because how do you substitute quickly, or someone doing something faster than it seemed possible? You're adding 5 more words to your sentence just to not use an adverb, and honestly, quickly is completely okay. You kind of have to juggle, do a little bit of a juggling act. Less adverbs is always better than more adverbs, but of course, I have to preface this, I'm near the end of the answers, I should have said this earlier. This particular issue, we're talking about polishing up writing. I don't want you to stop in the middle of writing, you're writing that, you're in the zone, you're writing, you're telling the story, and you're like, oops, I used an adverb, I better go back and refix it. Nah, just keep writing. Fix all of this through revision. I have adverbs in my manuscript, but I always try to edit as many of them out as I can. The ultimate point here, and the thing that I want to get across, because I hate articles on writing that are like, don't do this because it's bad. And that doesn't tell people anything. I would like to inspire you to use less adverbs in your writing because they're ineffective. They don't describe things to the reader. It's a shortcut, it's a shorthand. Shortcuts are not always bad, but in this particular scenario, if you're not telling the reader anything of value, or you're not showing them what you're seeing, then don't tell them, just cut them out. Ultimately, again, what are we doing here? We're trying to tell the best story possible, and at least from my own point of view, if there's something that I'm telling the reader, I want them to see it like I'm seeing it, or at least enough so they can finish the rest of the picture by themselves. Not just be like, just picture her being romantic, like, I don't know. Nah, that doesn't fly by me. It's not really the way that I tell stories, but hey. This is just my point of view on the way that I feel about it. If you would like to share your own point of view on the subjects that were talked about today, including adverbs, I would love to hear what you have to say. If you have a question for a future video, please let me know in the comments down below. I will answer it. I will give you a quick and dirty answer on what I think, but I will also add it to the lottery to see if you get a full-on extra long answer in one of the future videos. And one more thing before I go, if you enjoy my content and would like to make sure that I can continue making writing advice videos for the foreseeable future, consider pledging to my Patreon page. Patreon is a really cool website where viewers can actually pledge their support towards the content creators that they enjoy, and gain cool perks in return. If you pledge at least $1 a month to my Patreon, you get to watch my videos early, way before anyone else, and if you pledge more, you can get copies of my books ahead of time as well. But of course, if you would like to support my content and pledging a monthly amount is not your cup of tea, you can buy me a cup of coffee with a one-time donation in the link down below. But anyhow, I gotta get going. I wanna thank you for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll see you on the next one!